What if I told you that The Matrix was never supposed to work? That behind one of the most revolutionary sci-fi films ever made, there was confusion, pain, paranoia, and a production so risky that Hollywood executives genuinely believed it could destroy careers instead of creating legends? When people talk about The Matrix, they usually remember the black coats, the green code, the bullet time, and the philosophical questions that changed pop culture forever. But very few people know what was really happening behind the scenes while the cameras were rolling. Because this wasn't just a movie production. It was an experiment. A collision between cyberpunk philosophy, martial arts cinema, anime inspiration, existential fear, and a level of ambition that Hollywood simply wasn't prepared for in the late 1990s. The Wachowskis weren't established blockbuster directors at the time. To most executives, they were outsiders with an impossibly strange script about simulated reality, artificial intelligence, human consciousness, and a hacker discovering that the world itself was a prison. The studio didn't fully understand it. Some actors didn't fully understand it. Even members of the crew reportedly struggled to visualize what the final film was supposed to become. And yet, somehow, everyone involved could feel there was something different about it, something dangerous. Because The Matrix wasn't trying to imitate cinema, it was trying to redefine it. Before filming even truly began, the cast was thrown into months of brutal physical training. Martial arts, weapons choreography, wire work, endless repetition. Keanu Reeves entered production while dealing with severe neck problems after surgery. Carrie-Anne Moss pushed through intense physical exhaustion. Hugo Weaving would later describe how demanding the action sequences became. Nobody expected the process to become so physically punishing. And at the center of it all was a production team attempting to invent visual effects that, at that point, barely even existed. That's the part most people still don't understand. Today, the bullet time effect feels legendary, iconic, almost mythological. But during production, nobody knew whether it would actually work. Entire sequences depended on experimental camera systems, complex rigs, frozen motion photography, and visual techniques that had never been tested on this scale before. Massive amounts of money were being burned on ideas that sounded impossible on paper. If those sequences failed, the entire movie could collapse with them. And the pressure only intensified when Warner Brothers began seeing the cost of the production rise. There are stories that the studio became increasingly nervous watching the film evolve into something far stranger, darker, and more philosophical than they originally expected. Because this wasn't becoming a traditional action movie. It was becoming a cyberpunk nightmare about control, illusion, free will, and the fear that reality itself might be artificial. And the deeper the cast and crew went into the project, the more obsessive everything became. But the most fascinating part? Some people involved in the production later admitted that working on The Matrix started to feel psychologically surreal. The long hours, the philosophical themes, the blurred line between performance and identity, the exhausting choreography, the endless greenlit sets. It created an atmosphere unlike almost any other Hollywood production at the time. And then came the moment when they finally started filming the scenes that would either change cinema forever or completely destroy the movie. And if you're someone who loves movies that completely transform the way we see cinema, stories hidden behind the cameras, and the dark reality of what actors and filmmakers go through to create masterpieces like The Matrix, then take a second to support the channel. Drop a like on this video because it genuinely helps these stories reach more people who are obsessed with film history, sci-fi cinema, psychological storytelling, and legendary behind-the-scenes productions like this one. And I really want to ask you something before we continue. Have you ever watched The Matrix and felt that strange sensation afterward, like reality suddenly seemed a little different? Like the movie stayed inside your head long after it ended? Comment below if you've ever felt that. Because honestly, a lot of people did. And if you're new here, subscribe to Shadow Reel. Because this channel isn't just about movies. It's about the hidden stories, the production nightmares, the psychological layers, the symbolism, and the real human experiences behind some of the most unforgettable films ever made. Because once you learn what was truly happening during the filming of The Matrix, you'll never watch these scenes the same way again. Especially when you discover what the cast had to endure before the cameras even captured a single frame. The strange thing about The Matrix is that almost nobody truly believed in it at the beginning. And when I say nobody, I mean the people with the money, the power, the experience, the people who were supposed to recognize greatness before it happened. To them, this wasn't the next revolutionary sci-fi movie. It was a bizarre cyberpunk script written by two filmmakers who seemed obsessed with philosophy, anime, simulated reality, and existential paranoia. Hollywood had seen strange ideas before, but this felt different, riskier, harder to explain, harder to sell. The Wachowskis walked into Warner Brothers carrying a vision that sounded almost impossible to translate into cinema. A hacker discovering reality is fake. Machines harvesting humanity, martial arts mixed with philosophical symbolism, artificial intelligence, virtual consciousness, questions about free will, control, and illusion woven into an action movie. Today that sounds iconic. Back then, it sounded insane. And the craziest part is that the studio executives reportedly struggled to even understand the script. There are stories that some people reading it couldn't visualize how any of it would actually work on screen. The tone was too dark for a mainstream blockbuster. The concepts were too intellectual for a typical action film. Even the visual style the Wachowskis described felt alien compared to late 90s Hollywood productions. Green digital ring, leather trench coats, hyper-stylized fight choreography inspired by Hong Kong cinema and Japanese anime. Slow-motion gunfights mixed with existential dread. Nobody knew if audiences would embrace it or completely reject it. So the Wachowskis did something brilliant. Instead of trying to explain the movie with words, they created hundreds of detailed storyboards, almost like a graphic novel version of the entire film. And suddenly people inside the studio began realizing this wasn't chaos. It was precision. Every camera movement, every visual effect, every fight sequence, every philosophical beat. They had already imagined the entire experience long before the cameras started rolling. But even after the movie was approved, the fear never disappeared. Because now came the terrifying part, actually making it real. The cast entered a production that barely resembled a normal Hollywood set. Keanu Reeves wasn't simply preparing for a role. He was being reconstructed into Neo. Months of martial arts training, weapons drills, endless choreography sessions, physical exhaustion, mental pressure, and all of this while recovering from serious neck issues that could have easily limited his performance. Carrie-Anne Moss later admitted she was in constant physical pain during parts of production. The actors weren't just memorizing lines anymore. They were learning an entirely new cinematic language. And behind the scenes, the pressure kept growing, because the deeper the production went, the more expensive, experimental, and unpredictable everything became. If this story is pulling you in so far, comment "Wake Up" below. It honestly fits this movie perfectly. And what happened next during the filming of the action scenes made the entire production feel less like a movie set and more like a controlled collision between genius and disaster. As filming intensified, The Matrix stopped feeling like a normal science fiction production and started becoming something far more extreme. Almost everyone involved could sense it. The cast, the stunt team, the camera crew. There was this strange atmosphere surrounding the movie, like everybody knew they were attempting something cinema had never truly seen before. But nobody knew whether the experiment would succeed or completely collapse under its own ambition. And honestly, that pressure started affecting people. The martial arts training alone became brutal. The Wachowskis wanted the action to feel authentic, fluid, and hypnotic. Not like traditional Hollywood fights where actors throw random punches between camera cuts. They wanted precision, rhythm, movement that looked almost unreal, like human beings operating outside normal physical limits. To achieve that, the actors trained for months under legendary choreographer Yuen Wu-ping, whose style had already transformed Hong Kong action cinema into something almost mythological. But this kind of training came with a cost. Keanu Reeves was still dealing with severe neck problems after surgery. At one point, he reportedly had difficulty even kicking properly during rehearsals. Carrie-Anne Moss suffered injuries and physical exhaustion during wire work and fight sequences. Hugo Weaving pushed himself through physically demanding choreography while also trying to maintain the cold, mechanical energy of Agent Smith. The actors weren't just exhausted, they were mentally consumed by the process. Day after day, repeating movements, memorizing impossible choreography, suspending themselves from cables, crashing into walls, landing incorrectly, bruising muscles they didn't even know existed. And then there was the bullet time. Today we talk about it like it was inevitable, like it was destined to become iconic. But during production, bullet time was basically controlled madness. The crew had to invent complex camera rigs using massive arrays of still cameras firing in sequence to create that impossible frozen motion effect. It sounds simple now because modern technology copied it for decades afterward. Back then, it sounded insane. Imagine trying to convince a nervous movie studio to spend millions of dollars on a visual technique nobody had ever fully tested in a major blockbuster before. Entire sequences became technological gambles. If the effect failed, some of the movie's most important scenes would look ridiculous instead of revolutionary. And the terrifying part was that they often couldn't even see the final result immediately. The production team was operating almost on faith. They were building a cinematic language in real time while hoping audiences would eventually understand it. That uncertainty started creating an almost obsessive energy behind the scenes. The green-tinted sets, the endless nights, the philosophical themes about false reality and human control, the isolation of long productions. Some people later described the environment as psychologically surreal, like the movie itself was slowly pulling everyone into its atmosphere. You have to remember, this wasn't just actors pretending to question reality. Day after day, they were surrounded by dialogue about simulated existence, artificial intelligence, destiny, awakening, manipulation, and perception. Those ideas started bleeding into conversations off camera too. And the deeper they went into filming, the more the pressure escalated, because Warner Brothers was now watching an incredibly expensive production become stranger, darker, and more experimental by the day. If you're still here, comment, "There is no spoon." Real Matrix fans know exactly why that line became unforgettable. Because what happened when the studio finally started seeing the finished footage changed everything inside Hollywood almost overnight. When Warner Brothers finally started seeing completed footage from The Matrix, the reaction inside Hollywood reportedly shifted from confusion to shock. Because suddenly, this strange cyberpunk experiment that looked impossible on paper was turning into something nobody had ever seen before. The action didn't move like normal action movies. The cinematography felt cold, dreamlike, hypnotic. The philosophical dialogue somehow blended perfectly with martial arts, science fiction, artificial intelligence, and psychological horror. And the deeper executives looked into the footage, the clearer it became. This movie wasn't copying cinema culture. It was about to reshape it. You have to remember what blockbuster filmmaking looked like before The Matrix. Action scenes were faster, messier, more grounded in traditional editing. Then suddenly this film arrived with impossible slow motion, floating camera movement, gravity-defying choreography, and a visual identity so powerful that audiences instantly recognized it within seconds. The black trench coats, the dark glasses, the green digital code, the leather aesthetic, the feeling that reality itself had become unstable. And once the movie released in 1999, it spread through pop culture like a virus. People walked out of theaters stunned. Some were obsessed with the action. Others became obsessed with the philosophy. But almost everybody agreed on one thing. They had never experienced anything quite like it before. That's why The Matrix became larger than just a successful sci-fi movie. It became a cultural event, a psychological phenomenon, a film people quoted, debated, analyzed, and rewatched endlessly, trying to fully understand what they had just seen. And honestly, that obsession never really disappeared, because underneath all the groundbreaking visual effects was something even more powerful: fear. The fear that maybe the movie's central idea wasn't completely impossible. The fear that human beings live inside systems they barely question. The fear that modern reality already feels artificial sometimes. Controlled, programmed, predictable. The Matrix didn't just entertain audiences. It touched something existential hiding underneath everyday life. That's why the film kept growing long after release. Suddenly, Hollywood started copying everything. Bullet time appeared everywhere. Slow-motion action exploded across cinema. Video games borrowed its aesthetics. Anime influence became more mainstream in Western filmmaking. Countless sci-fi movies tried recreating the same dark philosophical atmosphere. But very few managed to capture the same feeling, because what made The Matrix unforgettable wasn't only the technology. It was the atmosphere surrounding it. That eerie sensation that the movie somehow understood modern anxiety before most people even had words for it. And maybe that's the strangest part about the entire production. All the exhaustion, the injuries, the obsession, the experimental filmmaking, the psychological atmosphere behind the scenes. It all became fused into the final movie itself. You can actually feel it while watching. The tension feels real because, in many ways, it was real. The uncertainty was real. The pressure was real. The fear of failure was real. Everyone involved understood they were attempting something dangerous creatively, financially, and technically. And somehow, against all odds, they succeeded. Not just in making a successful movie, but in creating one of the most influential science fiction films ever made. A film that still feels strangely alive decades later. A film that still makes people question reality. A film that transformed cinema forever while almost collapsing under the weight of its own ambition. So if The Matrix changed the way you see movies, or maybe even the way you see reality itself, comment "Free Your Mind" below. And if you want more deep dives into legendary productions, hidden movie histories, psychological symbolism, sci-fi cinema, and the dark behind-the-scenes stories Hollywood rarely talks about, subscribe to Shadow Reel, because some films don't just entertain us. They stay with us.